Hi, everyone. Welcome to this BRIC Town Hall, Youth Be Heard, Fighting for a Voice. This is one of a series of town halls that we've undertaken here at BRIC. It's a great opportunity for us to open up our building even further than it already is, and really open up the dialogue, more importantly. Now, we've talked before about policing communities of color. We've talked about gentrification here, and the last time we got together, we discussed big money in politics. And a lot of the time, there's a lot of back and forth about what we're doing next. There's audience-generated stuff. We listen to our community. And this one was sort of a no-brainer, and we came to realize that we were following a definite arc that brought us here tonight to Youth Be Heard. Because every single thing that we've talked about, from policing communities of color to big money in politics, all bears down to this, our young people, where the rubber meets the road. And it's easy to talk about violence when we see a viral clip or something that makes it to the level of the nightly news. But tonight we're not talking about people and personalities. We're going to get to systems and larger behaviors that are at work and how they're affecting young people. And to get us started with that, I'm going to introduce you to some very smart and engaging people who we're fortunate enough to welcome tonight. On this end, there he is right there. You want to say hi?
Hey, how you
This is Marlon Peterson. He's the founder of the Precedential Group, which is a leading reimaginer of the way that things could be. They're a social justice consulting firm, and he's also a board member at New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. And I happen to know that he just recently, a few hours ago, found out that this man right here, Marlon, is one of the 2015 recipients of the Open Society Foundation's George Soros Fellows. So congratulations, Marlon. Going to be working about ending gun violence to increase community safety in New York through the creation of zones where no one will need to carry a gun, not even police. So get into that. Next to him is a journalist that we're happy to welcome. Juan is from the online publication, which, by the way, was the first to break the Edward Snowden story. He works for the Intercept, and Juan is actually working on stories all the time about reporting crime and punishment, as well as race. He's been on the front lines in Baltimore and was live tweeting from there recently, and it was a perfect thing for him because he describes the focus of his work as advocacy journalism. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you, thank you.
And the woman next to Juan is Ms. Nadia Lopez. She's the founding principal at the Mott Bridges Academy in Brownsville. Thank you so much for being here. You might recognize her as the $1 million principal from the Humans of New York, but we've known that she's worth much more than that for a long time in this building, and we'll definitely get into that later.
Thank you.
Next to Principal Lopez is Ebro Darden. He is 1/3 of the Hot 97 morning team and a radio professional whose career has brought him all over the country, and we welcome here tonight. Thanks for being here. And Yaritza is next to me. She is representing the Make the Road organization. She's a youth organizer there, and she does a lot of work around youth organizing, particularly about punitive systems of schooling and discipline and over-policing in schools. So thank you, Yaritza.
Thank you.
Now, you might notice that this is a youth panel, but while we all certainly have youthful spirits, I'd like to think we're not exactly young people. So we have invited 4 young people that we started a dialogue a little while ago with, and they're here representing themselves and bringing a voice to the community town hall, which is young. And I'm going to start over on this side, and we have, where's Aisha is here. She is from Yo SOS, that's youth organizing from the Save Our Streets initiative. Thank you for being here this evening. And next to Aisha is Dure. He is from El Puente. Thank you for being here. They're an organization that is mobilizing young folks to do good in the communities. And over on this side, Crystal is here from Millennium High School. Thanks for joining us, Crystal. And next to Crystal is Kenneth, who came through us through our partner tonight at RealWorks, where young people learn about filmmaking. And while I'm talking about partners, we also have a great one in the form of WBAI Radio right now, who are simulcasting this. It takes a lot of people to put this together, and we want to give a special shout out to City Council Member Jumaane Williams, who was scheduled to be here but got called away because it's budget time, so he's fighting for his money to continue to do good in his district. So we thank him, and we thank you mostly for being here. So enough talking, we're gonna get into it now. So panel, thank you for being here tonight. We understand you guys get invitations for things all the time, so we're gonna start right there. And I'm gonna ask you, Marlon, what was your intention in coming here tonight, hearing that youth would be heard and fighting for a voice? What does that mean to you?
Well, I think what it means to me is that we finally beginning to get it, right? I think that they said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and trying to get and expecting a different result. I think we get it when we realize that we have to pay more attention to listening to what they are telling us and to their experiences and not sort of judging how they communicate it to us. So I think we finally begin to get it. So I appreciate BRIC for putting this together by having an amazing co-panelists, but also emphasizing having young people here too, so that we can hear from them. As someone who's a former young person too, but somebody who also is very passionate about I like to say people work, but not people work with a focus on young folks. I mean, my own personal experience has been somebody in my own evolution as a person has been largely based on the impact young people have had on me in some of my most trying times. So if they can impact an adult who's in some of the toughest spaces, I think we should give them the credit to impact our communities.
All right, Juan?
Well, I think you mentioned that I spent time in Baltimore. I also spent time in Ferguson. And the things that I noticed when you compare Ferguson and Baltimore is that both revolts and uprisings, whatever term you want to use, were led by young people. I was on a show previously, and the host mentioned, should we be thinking like television journalists for bringing our eyes and for alerting us to what's happening? And I said, no, we should be thanking the young people of Baltimore. We should be thanking the young people of Ferguson. We should be thanking the young people of Cleveland. All of these young people who have to deal with this vicious anti-black police state on a daily basis, or the ones who have the guts and the courage to stand up and fight back. There's this great video from Baltimore that shows this gang of like 50 or 60 kids, and they're doing actual battle with the police force, and they're throwing rocks at them, and then a cop picks up a rock and he throws it back, and they just bum rush him later. And I said before, that's like my favorite video of the entire ordeal that went down in Baltimore, because it shows young people who are harassed by the police, who are stopped and frisked by the police, who are tortured by the police, who are beaten by the police, taking their own destiny in their hands and saying, we're not going to take this anymore. So it's incredibly important that we elevate them this evening and give them the voice, because they're the ones who are on the front line, the vanguard of this Black Lives Matter movement, battling this vicious, racist, anti-black police state.
Principal Lopez?
So as the principal of a middle school in Brownsville, I really just believe in we failed our children because we underestimate the power of their voice. Because we don't ask them the questions first, we just assume that they have no idea. And so every single day I learn from my scholars because they're very reflective. They know what the problems are in their community. They know what the solutions can be, but there's a gap in teaching them the strategies for them to be able to actually make the change. And they want to do it. They don't want to destroy their neighborhoods. They don't want to live in fear. They come to school every single day. So I represent that side of, I have to educate these children. It is our responsibility, and we're the village to do that.
Hearing from young people is what I do every day, whether it's on phone lines or social media. So anytime there's an opportunity to get together with young people and talk about the issues that are going on and the things that they're facing, outside of obviously being in clubs and having a good time, which is, being on the radio and playing music. But, we talk about real issues on my program. And a lot of people don't like how heavy-handed I can be with young people and holding them not only accountable for the work that they want to do, but also holding them accountable for being active, remaining active, and understanding how to participate in the system to affect real change. So if that's the conversation we're going to have, I'm always available for that.
All right, Yuritsa.
For me, young people have always just been revolutionary. And so I just feel like if you look through historically at every single movement across the entire world, like young people have been the spark. They have been the first ones to be like, when adults have been like, you're meant to be seen, not heard. Young people are like, nah, F that. We're gonna go do what we need to do anyway, Like they have the courage, they're brave, they are angry. That anger is honest.
Yeah.
And so I'm always down to hear what they have to say. I'm always humbled by young people. I'm always ready to put them first. I'm always ready to be like, you know what? Whatever fight you need me to be a part of, if you need me to go against someone, I am there for you. Like, you can count on me. I will be your support system. And my experience growing up as a young person, it wasn't to the extremities of some of my classmates and what they've had to ordeal and gone through.
Yeah.
And so to see that and to continue to work with the young people from my own community, it breaks my heart when they hurt. And I love them, and I want to figure out, how do we work together? How do we heal each other? How do we become sisters to one another? How do we mother each other? How do we father each other? So that way we can really heal our communities and heal ourselves as a people, because we have a lot of healing to do.
So tonight, the premise is that youth will be heard, but so often before we do hear young people, we see them coming. And before we even see them coming, we've seen things about what's going to happen when they come. I'm getting to the way the mainstream media has portrayed young people in the context of a Ferguson, in the context of McDonald's 4 blocks, not even 4 blocks, 4-minute walk from here. So let's try to unpack that and get at what the largest misconceptions about youth are. All of you guys have been on the ground with young people, so what have they gotten wrong?
Well, as a journalist, I would say the first thing they gotten wrong, I'm here because I wrote this story on Nadia Ferguson, who was the young woman in Flatbush who got into this brawl. And I wrote this story because I looked at the New York Daily News, I think it's a tabloid here. On the cover, there you go, they called her a brute, and they called her an animal on another cover. And I thought to myself, in what newsroom do people think it appropriate or okay to call a young black person a brute or an animal? And anyone who has a cursory reading of American history and of white supremacy in this country knows that such words are often used to dehumanize and to marginalize black people. And so when I went out one night and I got home at like 3 o'clock in the morning, this story stuck with me and that cover stuck with me. And so I got up at 6 o'clock, like a few hours after, and I asked my researcher to find the address for Nadia Ferguson's family. And so then I schlepped down to Flatbush, and I interviewed her mother, because I know, coming from St. Louis myself, there's always more to this story. Nadia Ferguson isn't just a person who gets up one morning and says, I'm gonna go brawl at a McDonald's in Flatbush. I'm gonna kick this girl's head, and Ariana Taylor was the victim's name. This is a girl who has behavioral issues, she has anger problems. Her mother told me she's been seeking help from the public school that she goes to. They didn't give it to her. And so I decided to tell that story. And the New York Daily News, like a lot of newsrooms across this country, are dominated and filled with white people who don't have an understanding of the issues and who are very lazy and who are not interested in having these complicated discussions and doing reporting that requires legwork and requires you actually to depict Nadia Ferguson as a human being, not as a brute or an animal. And so when you talk about the role the media plays, the media establishment in this country, they're not interested in telling these stories. And I am, and that's why I'm here tonight.
I'd like to piggyback that too, and I would also like to say that we need to stop allowing, first of all, Daily News isn't news. You said it's a tabloid.
That's why it's a rag, yeah.
But I want to challenge everyone in this room. The reason these outlets write and entertain this way is because we click on those websites. If we stop going to those websites and we stop buying those papers, they would stop writing this way. We live in a time where blogs and all of these things control the flow of media. The reason CNN is trash now is because they watch how we all behave on Twitter and the things we hashtag and talk about. That sets the tone for what they're gonna put on television. If we don't behave that way on our social media platforms, they don't put that stuff on television. If we don't click on those websites, it doesn't sell advertising and it doesn't exist. So there is some accountability on ourselves to make sure that if we don't like how something's going, we make sure that we don't support it.
So by the same token, I think it's pretty clear which lanes that everyone is sitting here is in, but you do work for a corporate media entity. So walking into those rooms. Like Juan just said, you know, who in the edit room, there wasn't one person who spoke up and said this woman isn't a
At the Daily News?
Well, at any outlet, there has
No, we
to
talked
be.
about it on the radio that morning.
Yes.
We talked about her emotional problems. We talked about the behavioral issues. We talk about, a lot on my show is about mental health for the hood, specifically with black people who, I mean, it's been on, like there was an episode of Empire where, you know, I think it was Tarot Cookie's character was saying, oh, that's for white people. We don't need to go to therapy, that's for white people. We don't need to talk to anybody about our emotions, that's for white people. We have things that, you know, we're emotionally affected by. And, you know, we need to sit down with professionals sometimes and deal with those. And unfortunately, the public school system isn't created to customize to every student's need. And that's the failure of a lot of our public schools, not just in New York City, but around the world, where we have young people who are coming from areas where they hear police sirens every single night, gunshots every single night. That's like war zone things that people deal with. And then you expect these kids to walk into school the next day and study and be normal and fit into your, you know, curriculum or your little boxes and squares when they have special needs. And I think that's a failure on our public school system because we don't fund it well enough to put people in place to deal with these things. So you know, at Hot 97, we don't have a newsroom. I'm the newsroom, right? I decide what I want to talk about. And, you know, a lot of times, once again, these conversations happen because they know it's going to drive interest, right? They know it's going to pluck at an emotional chord. It's gonna force the phones to ring. It's gonna force people to hashtag so it's trending and it's marketing, et cetera, et cetera.
I'm gonna brother over here, and I'm just like, there are things you're saying that are landing on me, and I'm like, okay, I get what you're saying, and there's other things that I'm like, I feel like that's victim blaming. It just sounds like we, and I'm gonna say we, because it's not I, right? Like, because we're a community, we have to be very careful, I feel like, about the language and the way we talk about certain things, because, like, let's be real, this education system was not created for black and brown people, period, in this country, point blank, done. It's not. The curriculum and the things we're learning, we're only our history, right? Up until, not even our history, right? Like what they say is our history, up until a certain point. Like young people ain't learning that, you know, there were black kings and queens and pharaohs and they were running civilizations and they gave Europe civilization twice. They're not learning that. Young people are not learning that black people gave white folks civilization twice, okay? And like that we gave them education, that we gave them the arts, we created music for them, that they come from us, that we're not learning that. So this education from the beginning, the whole concept is a whole systemic thing that goes into why folks are behaving the way they behave. We have been psychologically taught to behave this. So I just want to be very careful when we say, oh, when we behave a certain way, because we can get caught up in the victim blaming and like.
So you know what? Let's move on. I don't want to quash this thing.
Behavior on what we entertain and click on.
But it's a systemic thing, and it's what young people are being fed for us all the time.
Well, let's speak to the educator on this. We have someone working with young people.
So,
but are they under the weight of that? Do you see your students come in and be aware of the weight of Thug on the front page and it looks like me?
They know. If you ask them, they know.
Yeah.
So to reference some of the things that you both have said, so I'm not a charter school. A lot of people think that because I refuse to go by a number. I think we put too much weight on numbers. The kids know numbers based off of grades. The kids know numbers based off of prison systems. They go by Mott Bridges Academy and they're called scholars because they're lifelong learners. They wear purple and black because those colors symbolize greatness and it symbolizes royalty. So if you ask my scholars why they wear that, they tell you it's because we come from descendants of kings and queens and that they are the originators of science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And that's why we do what we do at our school. But it starts with leadership. So if people don't take the ownership of saying, as a leader, as the person who runs the school, I'm gonna control what the scholars learn. I'm gonna control the language that comes in our building and what is being said and what they perceive, right? So Brownsville isn't the place that's considered a great place. I think it's the most brilliant place because children come there and they grow there and they are exceptional. And if you don't tell children that, I don't care where they live, if you don't tell a child that they're exceptional, they'll never think that. It comes from how we own it, right? So this idea about the papers, right? So New York Times has
And I'm sorry, not to interrupt you, but to be clear, this was not just a tabloid issue.
Right.
I saw President Obama behind the podium and say, thugs and criminals.
For
Right.
Baltimore
And shame on
protesters.
him for
Baltimore.
Yes.
So,
So this
if
isn't-
it's allowed,
Yeah.
so to Ebro's point, if you don't stand up and you don't say that we're not going to accept this, they'll keep doing it. So when the New York Times wrote that Brownsville was the murder capital of New York City, my scholars don't read the New York Times. It's not even sold in Brownsville. I had to buy the paper and show them,
Why?
right? Because it doesn't exist in our in that community that I serve.
No, why did you have to show them? Why did you take it upon
Because I
yourself
wanted them
bring
to
it in?
understand that this is an international paper. I want them to understand that it's considered the Bible in certain places. So whatever is in this newspaper, people tend to believe and will say that this is the letter of the law. So I asked them, how much does it cost? And they thought it was like 75 cents. I said, no. On a Sunday, it's $5. And of course, the kids were like, $5? And I said, see, this is the problem. They put it in things that you will not seek, and they continuously perpetuate this story about you. So we went online, and we saw the pictures. And some of them were like, I know him. That's my friend. And I said, but they're talking about your friend as though he's illiterate. They're talking about him as though he's a thug, he's a gang, and they have him in colors that would associate him with gangs. So all they're doing is saying, this is what it looks like here. So they wrote an article about us before Humans of New York in December. And I was very clear to the writer, Winnie Wu. I said, Winnie, let me explain something to you. I've read a lot of these articles. What I'm not gonna allow you to do is exploit my scholars, my staff, or my families. Don't write anything that's gonna bring any shame or say anything less than what you see in this building. And I had my scholar sit with her. And the first question they asked her was, what's your definition of integrity? Because I wanted them to take ownership of, we have a right to question what somebody's gonna write about us. The piece that you read, if you Google it, it speaks authenticity. She could not write anything less than. Of course, they put the poorest neighborhood in New York City because they want to sell tabloids, right? But the rest of it is authentic. But that's because I fought, and I made sure my scholars were gonna fight as well.
So speaking of that fight, in the spirit of the town hall, we invited young people here because we'd never talk about you without you is the premise. So we went out and met some young folks, and we made a video that we're gonna share here to let you hear their issues as they explain them.
You know what I hate now? Remember back then I was little, I used to go to the park by myself, you know, play around, do whatever I could do. Now my mother, no, you can't go there. I'm going around the corner. Jabari, don't go. I'm scared. Like, leave me alone.
It's scary.
Man,
You don't know. You could walk outside and something happen to you.
Tomorrow's
That's
not
just
promised.
life now.
We doing our handshake, and the cop's like, oh, really? Right in front of us? Like, how you gonna tell me if I could do a handshake or not?
yeah. Maybe everybody,
Nothing to do.
With a gang or
Like, everybody
anything,
has
they
a gang
associate
member.
everything with a gang.
Like,
Everything
just
is a
because I'm doing a
gang.
handshake, like, they just bothering me for no reason. Like, I ain't doing nothing to you. Why you wanna harass me?
I feel like adults, like they assume everything.
They pretend they
Yeah.
care.
They
pretend they care.
We go through a lot. For me, I try to go to school, go home, get my education, but while doing that, it's rough out here.
I got stopped and frisked by cops a couple of times, and like, they only think of just because of the way I dress, I'm a hood boy, or I'm in a gang, or I affiliate myself with gangs. But little do they know I take Brooklyn college classes. I have 40 credits as a junior. Like, I'm pretty good in school. Just because I dress, just because of the way I dress, they think that I'm a bad kid or something. It's not good to stereotype people.
I mean, I like hip hop, and like, I guess sometimes like people can take it the wrong way and say like, oh, violence is in it, the music and everything, but it's just all back to how you think, like how you take in that type of music.
It's like kids in minority don't really get as much attention as the other kids do.
Because they think we're gonna do something
Yeah,
bad.
they just assume that since we're of a minority that we're just not gonna do anything with our life. So since we're not gonna do anything with our lives, why pay attention to us? Why why even try to help us if we're just not gonna take the opportunity that they give us, which is not.
Even schools do the same thing. Schools will place the smart kids all in one class and the dumb kids all in one class. And just so that the smart kids could excel in life and the dumb kids could just stay behind. Like, you gotta mix them.
Like the thing with the 3rd grade where they say you fail your test, they start making jails. Like, maybe I was having a bad day that day that I failed my test. Like, just because I failed my test don't mean I'm going to jail because I ain't passed the test.
One fight and all of a sudden y'all care. Y'all didn't care before. They're not there anymore. And even now, you can't even hang out in
McDonald's.
Usually after, when you done with school, you go in there, you hang out. You can't even do that anymore because they telling you to leave. All because of one fight that happened that had nothing to do with you at all.
I want to explore the world. I want to see the world.
I want to live.
I want to go to Howard University.
I want to go to Oswego.
Me too. Where?
Yeah.
Where? You want to go where?
Oswego.
SUNY Oswego.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to go
I want to become an engineer.
That's an electrical engineer or somewhere in the medical field. You know, everybody's sick now.
Teenagers are gonna do what they want to do. We just live young and free.
So I should point out that Aisha, who's sitting here now, and some of her friends from Yo SOS, again, that's youth organizing for Save Our Streets, were the young people featured in there. And we thank them again for being such great partners and being so open. And looking at that picture right there, it's so specific to this place where we live and so incredibly universal at the same time. Those were kids from anywhere in the world with the same aspirations, but maybe not the same set of expectations set in front of them by a broader world. So Marlon, I'm gonna go to you and you, Yuritsa, right now to talk about where our young people are in terms of what they think they can achieve.
Well, you know, first of all, definitely I give a shout out to Yo SOS. It's a program. Y'all should make some noise. I was blessed to play a role in starting that program some years ago, just about 10 months after, a little over a year after I was released from prison. And to see it still happen now makes me proud to see these young folks doing that. Interesting enough, that question, I'm looking at that park, that's the park I grew up in, that's my park, Broward Park, BCM as we call it. And an interesting juxtaposition about it is that in that particular park, a lot of good happened in that park and a lot of not so good happened in that park. But when we have an opportunity to have a conversation with them, right? When we say, let's have a conversation with these young folks in the space that a lot of folks in our community don't feel comfortable talking to them in the park. My man in the video had his pants sagging. So automatically, there's a demographic of us in this room and who's watching this on television that's not gonna talk to that young man, right? But interesting enough, he has a lot to say. But we don't get to hear it, so we usually push him to the side or her to the side thinking that they will do something to me. In that, what we're doing, not only are we quiet in their voices, but you know, fortunately, these folks have people in their lives who can mentor them, who can support them. They're in a program where they get to associate with people who give them a productive sort of experience and exposure to different experiences. Everybody doesn't have that. So when we sort of push them away and we automatically judge him or her because she looks a certain way or he uses that sort of language, we can be actually pushing that young person into a situation that can cause more harm to himself and our community. And I said in that park, that happened in that park where I've seen a lot of good happen, a lot of bad happen. But interesting that we are able to view this piece, this short segment of positivity in a space where a lot of folks don't want to go to.
So Yuritsa, going on the back of that, you do a lot of work about over-policing in school and the place where students should feel safe, but they're essentially being groomed for institutionalization.
Yes, so it's something called the school-to-prison pipeline that, you know, in many different forms, you know, there's so many different ways to try and end it. There's no, like, one quick fix for any city or wherever you are, right? It's hard. I actually went to 2 different high schools growing up myself. So I went to a school that actually had a lot of resources in the city. And then I went to a neighborhood school in the neighborhood that was over-policed, had metal detectors, scanners, like barbed wire on the gates. And I was just like, my initial impression was just like, I'm gonna die. Like, I'm gonna get hurt in this school. Like, when you look at a building, you already have all these assumptions based on the way that it looks, because it doesn't look like a school anymore. There's gates, there's bars on the windows. That's not an educational environment at all. Like, what are you saying, right? Like, if I had this impression as a young person, imagine if you're older, if you're a teacher, and you're not from the community, which a lot of teachers who are who are teaching in our schools are not from the neighborhood, who already may have, don't even know that they may have these implicit biases and may not understand that they may act on those things now just because of now the way the school looks. Then you go inside. You're a young person. The first thing you don't want to deal with, right, is like a school safety agent yelling in your face, which is what happens all the time. Students have to take off their shoes. Students have to take off their belts. Students have to take off all their clothes. If you have hairpins in your hair, you have to take them all out. Young people are get late to class. Some young people don't even make it into class until second, third period because the lines are so long, and it depends on how many openings you have at your school. And if you're at the school that I work with, which is 4 small schools and a huge campus, it's even more students that you're dealing with, right? It's intense. And these are agents who are not trained to deal with young people. They are literally trained by the NYPD to deal with criminals, right? PD. And so, right, they're trained to deal with criminals. And so now you have these folks who are coming into the school who are parents I have seen get yelled at and harassed by these same agents. I've had college people who are like, we're never coming back to this school because the way they treated us was absolutely ridiculous, and it was very dehumanizing. Yeah. You know, this is not a prison. This is not the airport. This is a school where we come to teach, where young people should feel like they are trusted, that they are respected, that they're going to be treated with dignity, right? And that they have that. And when you walk into an environment like that, and then to top it on, like, you can get suspended for anything. I had a classmate. It was so funny looking back, but it was just so messed up why he got suspended. It's a funny story. He needed to fart. And he was like, "Mister, I gotta go to the bathroom." It happens. And he was like, "Mister, let me go to the restroom. You know, I don't wanna break free in class." And he went outside in the hallway, went to the bathroom. The teacher was like, "No." And he was just like, okay. He went to the bathroom anyway, came back, sat in class, started doing work again. And the teacher was like, "Go to the office, you're getting suspended." And I was just like, I had another student come to me and said, "I got suspended for talking back to my teacher, for saying no." Yeah. Which are all minor infractions that you're not supposed to be even getting suspended for. And the problem is that you can suspend a child for up to 45 days. I had a young woman who I had to spend all 60 days trying to figure out how to keep her encouraged at her suspension school so she could come back to school because it was actually an illegal suspension. So her parent didn't, the process is even messed up. So 5 days turns into 45, turns into 60. Young people can be suspended for up to a year. That's an expulsion.
Yeah. So Principal Lopez, how do you weigh safety concerns with making an environment that is beneficial to your scholars against the reality of what's waiting for them outside the doors of your school?
You set the example. I set the example and expectations with my adults. My adults can't speak to my scholars. That's our school. It's not my school, it's our school. So from the time you walk into my building, you get on our floor, because we are a co-located school. I don't have those issues with safety officers. My safety officers are really nice. They sign you in, you come upstairs on the floor. If anybody sees you in the hallway, whether it's a scholar or any adult that works for me, first thing they say is, "Hi, can I help you? Do you need to get to the office?" I don't tolerate adults speaking to anyone in a demeaning manner, because then you don't need to be there. Yeah. You have options and choices, and that's how I feel. When it comes to safety officers, they have to report to someone. In my building, we get to speak to NYPD. We get to have meetings. If I feel like someone is being disrespectful, we need to have that conversation, because I'm not tolerating it. And I'm gonna make their life difficult just as much as they're making someone else's life difficult. So on that end, there's a lot of respect that happens in the building, but I had to fight for it. It wasn't easy. I was the new kid on the block. I looked young, so they wanted to test me. But part of it is you have to show people and set standards that says, you're not gonna speak to me or anybody who works for me like that. You're not gonna speak to these children like that, especially young people, right? They're just always looked upon as though they don't know any better. Yeah. And they're spoken to in a manner like, you don't have rights. So you don't have a right to say anything back. It's about listening first and allowing them the opportunity to engage in a conversation. When you don't establish that in your building, everybody else is running the show. Yeah. So a lot of the things that I'm hearing that you're saying, my question starts to come to mind, like, so where's the principal at? Yeah. Right? Because that wouldn't happen. As soon as someone comes to my building and they feel like someone has done them wrong, the first thing they say to me is, so I have a concern, because they know I'm going to address it.
So I'm going to Juan, I'm looking at you, listening to the young people talk about the weight of low expectation. And this is something that we've seen explode in other places very recently. What's the sense that you get from young people when you are in Baltimore, when you are in Ferguson about?
Well, see, I don't think they have low expectations.
No, not that they have low expectations.
But I mean, the media, someone mentioned earlier that how they have low expectations. They don't. I'm from St. Louis, like West St. Louis, a neighborhood very similar to Brownsville or Flatbush. And everyone I know, everyone I grew up with, the people that I interview, whether they be in Ferguson or whether they be in Baltimore, the young people, like I did at one point in my life when I was younger, they desire something more. Yeah. I think when you say they have low expectations, that's a low expectations game. Those are like the expectations of soft bigotry and saying that people have low. They don't have damn low expectations. They want all the same things that we have. They want a job, they want an education, they want a home, they want to be able to live and to be free from police harassment, to be free from the intra-violence. This morning I wrote a story on this girl named Arnisha Bowers. A lot of people may not know her name, but at the same time we were focused on Rachel Dolezal, the white woman who was pretending to be black, a beautiful 16-year-old black girl. And this is a trigger warning for the people in the audience. She was raped, she was tortured, they strangled her and they set her body on fire. And the media and the society in general, including many of us who are black and brown, were obsessed about Rachel Dolezal. But Arnisha Bowers' name didn't get mentioned. She was buried last week, and I interviewed her grandmother this morning. And the pain in this woman's voice as I spoke to her for the story that I published earlier this afternoon, I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy. And there's no focus on that because Arnisha Bowers was also a straight-A student who had plans to go to college. And she was only 16 when she was murdered by these two purported gangsters in Baltimore. There is no low expectations among black and brown youth. When people say that, they ought to check themselves and think about that. These kids want the same goddamn thing that everyone else across this country want. And it's our job as adults in society and in the media and radio and in the high school or whatever to make sure that they recognize that and that we're there to guide them as they seek to advance in society. And we should focus on people like Arnisha Bowers instead of this trifling, trivial crap like Rachel Dolezal out in Spokane, Washington.
So just looking at the larger picture and hearing what the young people are saying are their issues, how do you think those things manifest on a show or a network like yours where you have to synthesize all of that and give entertainment as well?
I mean, we try to have fun. I don't think we take the information as it comes. I don't think we try to synthesize anything. I could say that, I'm happy with where music is today. There's obviously some content that I would prefer that we, kids weren't into, but there's tons of great things like the J. Cole's and the Childish Gambinos and Kendrick Lamar's and, you know what I mean? And I think it's a testament to young people wanting, as you said, wanting more, wanting better ideas, wanting better content. If you look at a lot of the hit songs, I think some are over-sexualized, but I do think that, there's a lot of a balance out there with love and aspirational things that are happening in music. So, and then as far as the content of just the news cycle of the day, I can be very critical of the tabloid things myself, but it also is very popular. So we try to, obviously they call me the old man because I'm grumpy about a lot of things, and I have high expectations for young people because most of the young people that I hear from, like you said, they dream. Yeah. They want to have fun. They want, support. They want love. They want feedback. If it's an artist that, wants to hear about us, they just want to learn. They want access. And they want to know that, if they put in their work, there's some reward at the end of the work that they do. And I think most people, young people, want to work hard.
Marlon, you wanted to get in?
Yeah, I think, listening to Juan, what's new about what happened in terms of, you didn't even mention Khalif Browder, right? Who was a suicide, but in many cases we're all responsible for that young man's death, right? But what's new about that? What's new about the Nadia Ferguson case and the way we sensationalize it in the news? In that video that you saw, one of the young women said, they only care about it now. We've been experiencing these sort of things for generations, right? When we've been experiencing our young folks not being listened to. We've been experiencing us being oppressed in terms of our mentality of lessness. Somebody called it, mentioned as white supremacy. But we internalize our own helplessness and hopelessness. And in many cases, what we do, the way we deal with it, we act like a surprise when something happens, when some young brother or young woman shoots somebody on the block. We act like, oh my God, what happened? How could that possibly happen? We act surprised if we weren't to see these things happening. But then we also are complicit in many ways in how things continue. So, I wrote a piece last week in Ebony speaking about the Khalif Browder case. And in it, I spoke about that, we knew, first of all, Khalif Browder himself, a college student, wrote about what you call it, solitary confinement as effects of it. We, as a society, we incentivize politicians who come with things like tough on crime policies. New York and North Carolina, 2 states in the union that still prosecute young people as adults, right? And we act like young people that are 16 and 17-year-olds. We are part of it. We vote these people into office. We are part of it in many cases. So as we are, and I'm very big about also holding the media responsible. I often say the media is like the 4th branch of government, but has no checks and balances. But I'm also critical about how we, as a people in our own community, aren't critical enough of what we see. When we see a young person on the news who are accused of a crime, the first thing many of us often say is like, she or he need to go to jail. Yeah. We say that. We don't ask the different questions. Why did that person do that? Right. What's happened in that young person's life that will cause her or him to make that decision? Right? We don't ask that question. We jump at the end and think that somehow we're going to prevent it. We are so complicit in these sort of things. So at the outset, when I said that we're finally we're finally getting it by speaking to young people, hopefully there's some sort of shift. And just to add on, my experience is somebody who spent 10 years of his life in prison. Right? I'm only 5 years out, and I've been able to be a part of some amazing things since I've been home. But I was also a young person in that same park, engaged in a lot of them same activities, who was sort of in many cases reaching out and screaming out for some sort of assistance to hear me out. So was it surprising that at 19 I caught myself in an armed robbery? I'm just saying that we have to pay more than the usual attention to what young people are saying now and check our own sort of bias at the door.
Can I interject just for one moment and then you can go?
Yeah, absolutely. But before you do that, I'm giving you guys, I'm giving you guys a 2-minute warning that we're coming to you very soon, so get yourselves ready. But back to you, Juan.
Oh, okay, thank you. There is this role that the media plays. There's this great book called The Race Beat that was published, I think, in 2007. It's about 2 journalists who played a significant role in the civil rights and human rights movement in the 1960s. But we, as black and brown people, have to check our own biases and whatnot at the door, of course. But it also depends on what the media shows you. The same time that Nadia Ferguson and Ariana Taylor were brawling in Flatbush, that same week, there was a gang of white men in Midtown, St. Patrick's Day, who were brawling and fighting. And one of the white men fell down, and the white cat came up to him and kicked him in the head. The exact same thing that happened in Flatbush. You did not see that on the cover. You did not see them calling these white men brutes and savages and animals. You didn't see that. So we can internalize it and look at these issues from our own perspective, and of course, check our own biases and whatever about black and brown people. But the media plays a significant role and what we absorb as a society.
I think we can all agree on that and say, if we acknowledge that fact, let's take it a step further and say, when St. Patrick's Day thing gets out of hand, it's not necessarily a brawl, but 2 guys got a little happy.
Oh, it was a brawl, though. There were 7 men fighting in Midtown on 5th Avenue.
Just take the walk with me for 2 minutes. If 2 guys leave a Midtown bar on St. Patrick's Day and things get a little out of hand and someone winds up getting kicked in the head, he's not like a brute or a savage, but this could happen to a young woman in a McDonald's somewhere. So I'm saying, how do we move forward and reframe the argument so Clive and Bundy and his gang of guys out in Nevada with their guns challenging the federal government is seen as the thug and not the young man playing basketball with his pants sagging.
Or the biker gang, the biker gang
in Waco, where 9 people are dead following a biker brawl. Those people are not seen as thugs and criminals. They're a gang, or they're the 19 individuals who were arrested. So I'm saying, how do we move the needle to make it equal, where the folks who are black and brown aren't portrayed as the savages, and those other people had bad behaviors?
People brutes or savages or thugs.
Yeah.
People are human beings. Yeah. And I like to use those terms, especially the word thug, because it has this racial historiography of white British people who use it to slur dark-skinned Indian people. I hate that term. I think it's ridiculous and disgusting. But I do believe in what you just said in grappling all these issues from the same perspective, and making sure that myself as a journalist, that I go at it from the same perspective. That's important too, but it's also important. One of the things I noticed in being a journalist is receiving emails and tweets and whatnot from people challenging me when I am wrong. And that's very important to me. I like to be challenged, because I think if you have all the answers all the time, I don't trust you. I don't trust anything about you. So it's important. If you disagree with the New York Daily News cover, I think you mentioned this, let them know. You tweet at them, you Facebook them, you email them constantly, you even call the damn number and let them know that you don't like it. And sooner or later, if there's a flood of public discontent, they have to change. They have to.
Buying it, though. You have to stop buying it.
What if you're not even buying it? But what if you're not the one who buys it anyway? That's the question.
All you can do is obviously take action yourself, but with everything in America, it is about money. Everything.
Yeah.
Everything. If you want to know what's happening in America, it's about money or resources or control of some sort, which goes back to money or ownership or something, right?
But it's also about instant gratification, right? So if these stories are not constantly being told in the media, just like you said that there's a lot of people out there with blogs, there's a lot of people on, you have Black Twitter. So anytime something happens and you go to Black Twitter, something's gonna get shut down because there's so many of us going in, right, that it changes a direction.
Exactly.
The problem is if the story, like you're saying about Ted and Bundy, is not put out there on a consistent basis and people don't feel like they're getting 1,001 retweets, then they stop telling the story. And it's not about that. You have to pick up momentum. You just have to keep with the grind, because it'll be one story that'll hit that now you have 1 million retweets. Yeah. But oftentimes, like you said, it is connected to money. If people don't see that there's a value at the end of it, they stop.
And just so everybody knows, those retweets, that's somebody's money. That's their brand. That's leading you to their website to click on a link. That's leading you to a Facebook page that they're selling advertising against, right? All of that goes back to money.
So we're going to open it up to the young people, but an interesting statistic that I came across today, 1,500 newspapers in America, 1,100 magazines, 9,000 radio stations, and 1,500 TV stations. If you mash them all together, they're owned by about 6 corporations. So if you vote with your dollars, you vote with your tweets, you only have to contact really 6 people.
Right.
It's doable.
Right.
All right, Kenneth. We're starting with you. Keep us honest.
Hello? Aye, it's on. All right. This is for Ebro. I like what you said about when people, if they stop shooting the things, because when fights and stuff happen with teens today, it's like we're the ones pulling out the phones. You see what I'm saying? These fights, I'm pretty sure, happen in like suburban areas and stuff, but people are not putting out the phones and like putting on World Star. So that's a problem in itself. So if it be that one person to stand out and be like, hey, this is wrong, we gotta stop jumping this person, then I think that will change something. Money is a huge thing with the businesses and stuff, because they control like Twitter and Facebook and all those things. So this is put out like as a mass media thing, because every time a little thing happen with black people, it's blown up, because these are publications and stuff that are owned by white people, that been like racist for years, so they capitalize on that, you know. And we need like to create our own like big publications so we can see the true stories that's happening, because it's easy to paint someone as a thug, especially when you're not living in the life. You're not living in that neighborhood, so you don't know what's happening. These kids are like, half of the time that happens, these kids are hungry, these kids are starving, these kids are angry from the life that they have, so they react that way. It's not so much of them being a thug or them being angry. It's life situations and they reacting like that, or they have that mentality. So.
All right, thank you, Kenneth. So before we even go any further, we've had a lot of discussion about the racist nature of a lot of the mass media. So I want to know from you, Mr. Media person sitting here, what would make a person who is not of color not tune out right now? If everything leads back to this is the white people own the media and they're depicting black people like this because we pulled out our phone and recorded it, how do we bridge that gap to make it an inclusive thing to say, you know, you're doing something bad? How do you not lose a coalition to make change happen by saying what you believe to be true?
I mean, about how white folks own the media?
Yeah. What's going to change if we have young people who can recognize that, you know what, white people control the media and we make these videos, we click on these things because that's all they feed us. So how do we move forward from there if the line is so thick and drawn?
That's a very heavy question.
Can I jump in?
Let me.
Oh, you're in the media as well. If you have a ready answer, I'll listen.
No, I was just going to say there's other things being fed out there. Oprah put up a network, right, that none of us supported. She put up a network. None of us supported it. We didn't watch it. Right? You might have watched it, but not enough of us. Empire jumped on Fox. We watched it. And so Fox, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, which also owns the Daily News.
Yeah. No, he owns
the Post,
and Fox News.
And Fox News is now they're going to make more programming catered to black people because they see our behavior, right? But once again, it's on us.
It's perpetuating the stereotypical things of black people. It's not like really
listen,
what black people are.
No, but people watch it though. That's my point is we're watching the program. We have to take some responsibility for the things we consume, and they'll stop being made.
Well, okay, before I know that I put this to you first, but I definitely don't want to lose the voice of you guys. Do you have something in this stream that you want to contribute, Crystal, Aisha? Okay, I'm going to give it back to these two.
Maybe something will come up.
Well, I was just going to say, black people are 13 or 12.5% of the population. Our Latino brothers and sisters are 13.
I thought they were 18 or 20.
It's like 14%, almost 14% of the population. This is still a majority white country. No matter where we go, we're going to enter corporations and stores, and we're going to watch media that is owned by white people who don't have our interests in heart. As far as like what we can do as black and brown people, as minoritized people, when it comes to this battle, it's easy to say, like, we shouldn't watch World Star Hip Hop, which is owned by black people. We shouldn't watch some of these shows that perpetuate black stereotypes. Why can't we be human too? You know what I mean? Like, black people are human. We have the same sort of inhibitions or the same sort of cravings that a lot of other people do. Brown people do the same thing. Right. It's a ridiculous onus to place on black and brown and other minoritized people, which is you should just stop being human like this. Right. No, we're human too, and sometimes we're gonna screw up, and sometimes we're gonna watch things that we shouldn't watch, or we're gonna listen to things that we shouldn't listen to. The onus is not on us. Yeah. The onus is on like this white supremacist, anti-black, anti-brown society in which we live.
Right. All right, Aisha, you have something for me? Anything you've been keeping track of that you want to unpack a little?
Can you hear me?
Keep talking. They're working very hard up there.
I wanted to direct this statement to the principal, Nadia, Lopez.
Yeah.
In my school, you said something about if the safety agents, if they disrespect the students, that you addressed it. And I just wanted to say, like, what if that didn't apply for the other public schools in New York City? Because in my school, if the safety agent disrespects you and you reply, you get suspended. Right. So like, what would be your thing to say to the other principals that are not like you?
So,
That's real.
yeah, it's real, right? That's real. So I can't be accountable for every principal in New York City. Unfortunately, there's 1,700 schools, and everyone has a different philosophy. I don't have that mentality. Everyone knows who deals with me. Marlon comes to my school. Brian has dealt with my school. It's like it's the children first, right? But there's also, if a child is disrespectful to a safety agent, they're not going to get away with that either. Everyone has to come to the table. I literally have a table. Everyone has to come to that table. We're going to have a conversation. I don't make assumptions. I'm not going to do that. I don't deal with he say, she say. We're all grown. We need to all come to the table, because I just need to understand, why would you have a conversation with a child that would make them feel disrespected? Because that goes back to being heard. I want this scholar to know that I'm their advocate. When that parent isn't in the building, I'm their parent. By New York State law, a child is in the building, we are their parents. We have to protect them. Anything happens, it's on my watch. So I need to sit there and I need to hear what's going on, because if my scholar is wrong, then we need to address that. But if the adult is wrong, then we need to hold you accountable. And that's point blank, period. And that goes across in any job. That doesn't have to be just because it's a safety agent in a school. We should always be respected in the spaces that we're in. So I don't know if you have a student government, if you have perhaps a guidance counselor or assistant principal, some adult that you can speak to, maybe a teacher who would be willing to listen and be your advocate. But if you get enough of your peers, and I would say start with 5, start with 10, you have so much power that you have no idea, okay? You start with a petition. You write out, like y'all learn claims, right? And you have to have your supporting evidence. Here's the claim, here's the supporting evidence. All of these children here who have signed this petition, we're speaking out against the injustices that's happening in our building. And we need to have a meeting. Do the very thing that they've taught you to do, right? Have a claim, because that's Common Core. Get your supporting evidence and present it.
It works.
Do you know any alternatives to suspensions?
That's me all day. So I never get to my job until, like, I'm here early. I'm never out of my building before 6 or 7 o'clock. My daughter's in the audience, because I don't get to my real work until after 6 o'clock, when every scholar is gone. Because I end up talking more to children, and I end up talking to their parents, because I believe in post-traumatic stress disorder. Mm-hmm. I believe that a lot of our children are dealing with abandonment. They're dealing with the stress of being a parent to their parents, or being a parent to their siblings. Some of my parents can't even manage themselves, let alone manage the children that they have in their lives. So if I'm not, like, if you come into my office, there's literally these little couch chairs, and I just sit and I give people the space to talk. And sometimes that just changes the whole momentum of what's going on. Like, people come in angry, children come in, I had a scholar who would come in angry and upset. And as soon as he walked in, the first thing a teacher said was, "Why are you in here late?" And he stormed out and he started cursing. By the time I got to him, I said, just don't say anything else, just don't say anything else, just go in my office, just sit. I wait, I don't even follow him, I let him sit, give him a minute. I sat down, I said, what's wrong? He said, yesterday, I was pulled over by a detective. They wanted to say that I had something to do with a shooting. This morning, I was coming here, but I was a little late. They threw my book bag on the ground. And then I got in the truant officer's car, and I get over here, and the first thing he's gonna say to me is, why am I late? We weren't listening. The first thing he should have said is, good morning, scholar. As soon as I have an opportunity, I'll talk to you later and find out what happened. So because I sat down with them, the first thing I did was I called the sergeant of the 73rd precinct and I asked her to come over, because somebody needs to apologize to him. And we need to have a conversation about who this person was who treated him the wrong way. Then I called the council member and I was like, this is unacceptable. We need to have a conversation about when we can have all of us at the table together to make sure that he doesn't feel this way. So instead of suspending him, because someone else would have said he needs to be suspended, I'm not suspending him because he was angry at the situation that came to be. you could suspend kids, don't get me wrong, kids have gotten suspended, but it takes a lot. I'm not gonna suspend a child who just needs sometimes someone to listen to them first.
All right. Now it's time for us to listen to you, Crystal.
It's on, right?
It's on.
Okay, all right. So I wanted to go back to what Marlon said. He was saying that, talking about how whenever anyone gets in trouble, and this can be anywhere, like in school, in any place, you get in trouble, you make a mistake, we throw you out. We don't want to deal with you, we don't ask what's wrong, what's happening, which is exactly what Mrs. Lopez is talking about right now. So I always talk about this with my friends because I feel like that's something that you don't see often in my school. I feel like it's a very open environment, and if you need help, you will get the help. And I feel very blessed to be in a school that way. And I feel like one of the key reasons why why the school is that way is because, one, we have a very good support system, like in advisories, and two, we have teachers who are willing to talk to us about anything, like things that are happening right now. So for instance, everyone has an advisor, and even if you don't have an advisor, like I feel confident saying that almost, or like everyone in there has someone they can go to and be like, I need to talk about this because this is affecting me. Mm-hmm. Two, we have classes that we can take in my school, like even in just history class, but like specifically we have a sociology class. In that class, you talk about, sociology is a study of society, so you talk about everything having to do with the world we live in, gender, race, and all those kinds of things. And I feel like it's essential for people to understand, and live in the world we live in. You get it? Because what I feel like is that the school system focuses way too much on testing, mm-hmm. and all they care about is
I'm looking at a bunch of young people who are clapping their hands, just for those of you listening on the radio, they concur.
Yeah, I feel like it's they jam-pack the curriculum, and it's that's important to talk about, but we don't have time to talk about it because you have to pass this, because I have to look good for the system, and you have to get somewhere. And it's you're not giving me time, you're not letting me learn what's important. I'm sorry, but I don't think that knowing why a drape is blue in a literary book is important. I feel like, why?
Your people are here tonight, Crystal. You're talking to those students.
I feel like what would be important is why am I here? Why am I a minority? Why do I have to struggle? Why do I live in a neighborhood that used to be full of my people and everything, and now we're full of these different, all my people are getting kicked out is what I'm saying, gentrification, why is this happening?
So I just want to jump in real quick. So this what's your name, sis?
Crystal.
Crystal, I'm sorry, Crystal. I usually don't remember names, so expect that from me. But in her comments, right, she spoke about issues that we tend not to go to young people about, right? Mm-hmm. Not only she spoke about, she didn't speak just about education, but she spoke about the system of education in terms of what she's being taught in schools and what's important over what's not important. She spoke about gentrification, right? We don't think young people know what's going on. They may not always use the word gentrification as something they might just understand as white people moving in the neighborhood. What's happening, right? Or why we getting evicted out of our project building, right? But they know, they're conscious of it, right? And I think that it's very difficult, I guess, for adults because we have our own trauma issues that we're dealing with. Of course. We want significance. We want to be important. We've had our own issues of being quieted in many cases. So when we get the opportunity, we just act like we block everything else out. But we're missing that they are conscious of what's happening around them. They're not only conscious of that somebody on a block got shot. They're only conscious that somebody, not only conscious of that, they're conscious of larger social systems that illustrate, that result in those issues that we put on the news. They're conscious of all those things at the under roots. And I think it's just sensible. Is it not sensible for us to pay attention, and not only pay attention in a sort of, in a way that's patronizing, but in a way that they actually get to inform us about what needs to be done, and so also identify what's wrong in the spaces that they live in.
Dowry.
I wanted to bring it back to when we were talking about like the media, and then another big thing that came up was Ms. Lopez was talking about how the way that the media like perpetuates us, and then I was thinking about this because I was working on a project about how the media sells us our identity. So then what that came into mind was that we watch like the media, and then we get like the media is something that's big around nowadays, and we all have iPhones, we all have computers and all this stuff. So it's something that's all around us. So whatever they're selling us is clearly going to influence our minds. And so if like how you guys were saying that they were calling the women in McDonald's like the brutes and then the thugs, and then if they keep saying this to us, this is all that we're gonna know, and this is all that we're gonna like think about them, because when the media the thing about the media is that sometimes like, let's say I live in this neighborhood and I'm not like from Flatbush, and then I don't know what's going on in Flatbush. The only way, like my only source of me knowing what's going on in Flatbush is by going on to like the Daily News or going on to these like big sources that's telling me what's going on there. And I'm gonna take that as like a credible source. So then these people are like giving us our identity. So then, and then we're not being, like we're being perpetuated as being like those thugs and being like those minorities and always fighting. Because that's all you're seeing nowadays too, and in the news about those crime rates in the Bronx and killings and all this stuff. And it's usually like people like us, like the Latin community and the blacks too, like the black community and how we're minorities and always killing other people. So then, like this perpetuation is spreading to everywhere, and then everybody's just getting this sense of how we are. And it's always like that blabbering about how bad we are and all these things that's going on. So then it's like changing their perception.
So you know what I have to ask then, Dowry, Aisha, Crystal, Kenneth, who lied on you? Who presented an image of you that you want to demolish right now, never to be heard of again?
Something I always talk about is how, so I turned 17 in July. So last year when I turned 16, I remember thinking like, oh, I don't want to be that age, because like that's the age everyone criticizes. Like when you hear any 16-year-old, you're like, oh, they're a thug. Like they don't care. They just do stupid things and they're idiots and whatever. And it does not represent who I am. I'm actually responsible. I care about my school. I want to be something someday. Like I just don't like that my age automatically lets someone know who I am when none of it is true. Like it's just a big thing. And then especially, I don't know, I just hate it. It's just.
All right, no more getting down on 16-year-olds. You heard it here, she quashed it. I'm going to you, yeah.
Really quick, I just wanted to give another example.
Please.
I have this friend of mine who's Asian, right? And then he does a lot of studying. He's like he's a smart kid in my class, right?
Yeah.
So then every time like we have those PSAT tests, those regions.
Everyone wants to sit next to your Asian friend.
And then he's always talking about like I'm thinking about I want to go to this good college and everything, those prestigious colleges. But then he's always bringing up the statistics as if those statistics define me. So then it's like how they're selling me this identity, but do they really know who I am?
So, in terms of just thinking about when you said the branding piece of it and how the stereotypes are perpetuated. So after I was just so upset that I felt like enough was enough with the last article. It was in the New York magazine. I was livid, right? So I was like, I had already said it out loud. I was already working on this. I was like, I'm gonna create my own magazine. That's it. I woke up, it was January of 2014. I called my girlfriend, Sarita Gates, who's like phenomenal. I said, Sarita, I need to create a magazine. And she was just like, really, at midnight? This is what you're doing? And she was like, can you call me back? So I called at 6 in the morning. So that idea, because I'm relentless when I have an idea. And I said, I need my scholars to create a magazine, but I want them to understand the complexity of how to develop a magazine. I want them to know who, like the creative director, I want them to know the roles and responsibilities. It's not just gonna be, we're gonna put something out. It's gonna be a life skill that they're gonna walk away with. So we, I don't have any money, but I found something. And I said, even if you do it pro bono, we just pay materials, whatever it is, I'll print the magazines out of my own pocket, whatever it's gonna take. She said, I'm with it. We got people from Brownsville. Made in Brownsville came out and supported us and did the digital layout and everything. My custodians let us stay in the building till midnight, 1 o'clock sometimes, just to get it pushed through. And the reason why I did that is because I wanted my scholars to see that in order for you to change the narrative, you have to control your content. And we keep asking people permission. So a lot of the things that I'm hearing is there's all of these things that don't speak to us, but when are we going to start controlling and saying we're going to start speaking of us, right? And I have a middle school, and I don't feel like middle schoolers are any less significant than high schoolers. But I have to start teaching them now. So we created it, and I said the reason why we're doing a digital magazine that will print some out is because really all of the magazines are online and things are folding. So I'm going to even teach them why they need to have a digital magazine. So if you go online and you Google it, it's under issue Brownsville Brilliance, and it's 60 pages. Because I said there's going to be content that speaks to the brilliance of this community. So they wrote the articles themselves. We found pictures, we took pictures, and they published it. And then we're doing another one that She Is Me. But what I'm gonna say to you young people, you have to start advocating and mobilizing. People only respect you when you come with an idea. You can't, sometimes you're emotional, and your emotions, even adults, it sounds like you're yelling. Find one person. There has to be one person in the building, one, who you have to be able to say, I need to talk to you, I have a really great idea. Let that person be the one who's going to speak to the principal, the assistant principal, whoever, because in high school there's multiple assistant principals. Someone's going to speak to the principal because you don't often have the opportunity to speak to them yourselves. But you have to start changing their mindset. Because oftentimes, I'm gonna be honest, some adults in buildings should not be in buildings. They don't know how to lead. They don't know 21st century. So we talk about all these great things and they're still stuck in 1978. And that's not where we're going. So you have to bring them, and they appreciate that, but you have to find one person that's gonna help you through it.
Yuritsa, I know that she's speaking your language now. We're talking about organizing.
Yeah, I mean, it's organizing right on the local level, which is important. You can't just jump into citywide organizing, right? You can't, in the larger levels, you gotta be organizing locally, right? You gotta be organizing within your community. Like, my message to young people would be like, get active. Activate yourself, activate other young people in your community, whether it's like through your school. If you wanna find a local organization, find it. Start getting active. If you wanna create a group yourself and you wanna run it out of your school, and because you feel like, oh, my teacher is giving me the space to do so, get active, because the reality is these elected officials who you did not vote for, right? Like, that's real. Y'all didn't vote them in, right? They're making all these changes that affect y'all. Talking about money. There's like a bill on the table right now that has the potential to put $50 million towards private schools, and that's coming out of public education freaking dollars, where public schools are already under-resourced and underfunded as it is, and the majority of kids who go to these schools are Black and brown young people, right? So it's like, y'all get active locally and get politicized, right? Start thinking, as you're thinking critically in your schools and you're thinking about these are the things that I want to change, understand how that's connected systemically, right? And how you can begin to get active on that level and start engaging in those campaigns. And whether you believe in reform or you believe in revolution, the reality is we need all of it. So whatever your heart is guiding you to do, whatever your soul is saying inside to get active and down with, the reality is you can organize in media. You can organize as a principal. You can bring organizing to any part and anything that you're passionate about, but you have to get active. And you have to start paying attention to what elected officials are saying, because they are making a lot of changes and are making a lot of decisions that are affecting you and your families. And whether or not they consulted you and sat you down about it, or came to you or came to your families, it don't matter. Go to them. Because the reality is they have to listen to you. Because imagine if every single young person in New York City, or if there was a mass of enough, you guys would be a voting bloc, and politicians would have to pay attention to youth issues. And that's the reality. If we got that many young people activated and organized, even if it was just like we're on a broad platform, these are all the issues young people care about, and we're bringing it to the table, and these are the masses you have behind you, working on the internalized work that we need to do with ourselves, right, with each other, and as a group, like, do that work. get active, ask questions, stand up for yourself, and because y'all are not afraid, right? Y'all are not afraid. That's real, because young people are the first ones quick to tell you the truth to your face and say it how it is.
And I'm gonna say, know when the bills are passing. So you just spoke about the bill, the budget is passing.
Yep.
It always happens in June.
Right.
Yes.
Graduation time
And April
and
15th.
elected officials wanna go on vacation.
Yep.
So a lot of the bills happen. I stay up sometimes and I watch that special channel. It's coming on, it's not C-SPAN, it's another one from New York. It's another one. Yes.
68.
Yes, one of those numbers.
There is no other channel.
It's a weird
Sorry, one channel.
My bad.
They will pass a bill at 1 a.m. while we're all sleeping. And I've seen them, and I'm like, what?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we don't know until September comes and we start asking questions like, when did this happen? Oh, it happened in June, and you can't change them. So you have to know that as well.
One second before we go any further, and we're definitely going to go further, we're going to bring the town into the town hall. So if you got, up there, real popular. So if you do have questions, please make your way down the steps to either side. Ro is here and Natasha's over there. Get in line and get your questions ready. Let's keep them tight so we can get through as many as we possibly can. So I do have one question while people are lining up, and I know you guys are already primed, but this is something that Bell Hooks has called the process of decolonization. So if we're gonna decolonize the minds of young people, we know that you can't sleep in June.
Right.
We know that you can grab one more person next to you and you have an organization. All they need to do is bring a friend the next time. So I'm gonna ask you, starting with Marlon, a real path to that process. What can we do leaving this building right now to start to undo those things and shift the narrative besides calling your friend at 12 and then 6 to start a magazine?
Well, I don't want to say besides that. I think what she was speaking about is our ability to create what we want, right? I think that's what she's speaking about. And, Nadia and I go back like car seats. We from the same neighborhood, same block. And she's inspired me in many ways to be able to create the things that I felt like we need in my neighborhood with young people, whether it be through playing a role in creating Yo SOS, Youth Organizing to Save Our Streets, or Holla, How Our Lives Been Called Together, or now this more recent project in terms of creating the neighborhoods where we want. So when we think about gun violence in our neighborhoods, there's some phenomenal people that are doing great work. You see them in the audience. See Man up there with A.T. Mitchell and his team up there in Eastern York particularly that are doing great work around gun violence in their communities. Along with that, one of the things that I propose to do, and I will be able to do, is to sort of like think about building our internal capacity within our communities to actually create the neighborhoods that we want. So case in point, oftentimes when a shooting happens in the neighborhood, the first thing that happens, or when a stream of violence happens in a particular block, the first thing that happens, or the precinct does, they put a mobile command unit, right? That's what they place there. They put the tower. Yeah. I know what that looks like. I've seen it in jail and I've seen it out here, right? But what if we thought differently? What if we thought, because the violence is an illustration of a lot of underlying things. So what if when that happens, we put what we want in that block? So we put the resources there where obviously there's a need for it, instead of putting more punitive measures there, because that doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. We don't trust law enforcement in many cases for very real reasons, right? Not saying that they're wrong or anything like that, but we do. There is a distrust there that we have to recognize and we have to admit to. So, the project that I'm proposed to do is to create what we want in those neighborhoods by resourcing with what we want. But also, here's a banger, right? It's not only that we create these spaces where we want and that guns and gun violence no longer sort of understood to be acceptable in that space, but also police don't bring them guns inside that block. It's a crazy idea, right? But you got to be crazy to change this world.
Well, the Soros Foundation agreed, but I'm going to have to ask you guys to answer the same and keep it tight, or you're going to have to answer to the folks who are waiting in line.
I was going to say, when you're talking about all the things you can do, you can infiltrate like these white establishments. There are only two, that's true. There are only two people of color who work on the editorial staff as journalists where I work. Right. And I put out like a filler a few months ago asking black and brown young people to apply. And Crystal, particularly, I think you should apply at the Intercept for like an internship, because you have to, if you want to change the dynamic and the way that these people talk about us, and you have to be on the inside. You can create your own things, but you can also infiltrate and make sure that your voice is heard at these sort of white establishments that have no black or brown people in them, which is kind of disgusting when you think about it, but Of course, that's the way America's worked for a long time now. So infiltrate, that's the key word from this evening.
Okay, I'm gonna go to Ebro because we know to stay awake and have good friends who will go with you from you. So I'm just gonna ask you to contribute something, Ebro.
I would say what you could do when you leave here is use the tools at your disposal and do everything that everyone up here is saying. Young people have nowadays more tools to connect with each other and create organization, awareness, their own story than we ever had when I was young. And if you're not using those tools, I think you're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing us a disservice. And people in charge, people in power, you know what they love more than anything? Analytics, data.
Yep.
Not just your opinion, not just your emotion. They want to see hard data and analytics because that's how big corporations make their decisions. And I think that's one thing that everyone in here should be doing, whether it's your Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter, whatever it is you want to use it.
Okay. I'm going to respectfully skip you because if we get you started on organizing,
I'm not going around.
Right. So just to remind everyone, we have folks lined up in the ballroom right now, but if you're listening on WBAR radio partner, or if you're watching on the YouTube stream, hashtag us at Bheard. We need analytics, like Evo said. We like those things. Let us know what you're thinking, what you'd like to know, but we're going to start with you. Share your name and your neighborhood with us.
My name is Diana Hampton.
Hey, Diana, what you got to say?
I have more of a statement than a question. I would like to ask for you guys' response.
Please.
So I'm 15 years old. I turned 16 in September. I have been raised by a great mother who's always taught me that if I want to make a change, I have to be that change. But most of the time, we're so used to being told that we're nothing but statistics and that we cannot be more than what they tell us we can be. And a lot of kids don't feel or feel that they need to take the effort it takes to be more than what they tell them to be because they're so used to hearing it. And it gets hard because nobody wants to listen to you. They call you irrelevant, and they don't take the time. Many people look at me and don't know I'm as educated as I am until I open my mouth. And I have a lot to say, and I feel strongly on it. I don't support the fighting, but if you know that this is how the media portrays us, why give them something to talk about? Because they're not going to sit here and come to my school and see all the kids participating in the Nationals Honor Society, most of them black and brown. But they'll sit there and portray us fighting in McDonald's, making us look like animals, but nobody takes the time to take care of us. You know, so it's like we're not much of a community. Until we come together to make a change, we will never make a change.
I'm glad you wanted a response. I'm glad you said that. I've been sitting up here with a kind of a crazy face for a minute, just because your frustration is a part of. I've been in media for 25 years since I was 15 years old. I'm 40 years old, and you know what hip hop went through in the late 80s and 90s with C. Dolores Tucker and our elder black people putting our stories out there and making us look like something was wrong with us because we were Tupac. And these individuals were Biggie were telling these stories or their fantasies, whether you liked them or you didn't like them. We were, dragged in front of Congress. Our CDs, music was burned in public. Like, it was a thing in the 90s. And it went when I was young. And I would always, even on the radio at that time, I would always say, why do our elders want to drag us out in public and embarrass us all the time, right? Why do they always want to take things away from us and tell us that our creations are bad, our graffiti's bad, our music is bad, the way we dress is bad? Why do they always want to do that to us? And as I got older, I began to understand that systemically, culturally, post-traumatic slave disorder, Willie Lynch theory, whatever theory you want to come up with that plagues black and brown people, there's a disconnect between our elders and us, and it continues today. And we as older, now I'm 40, I hold myself responsible, which is why I have these conversations all the time, and whether people like it or not, because I won't get on the radio and shuck and jive all the time, and everything's not a joke, and everything's not about somebody's edges or a light-skinned, dark-skinned joke or this or that. People have a problem with that because they don't want to have these conversations, and I appreciate you and your mother for telling you that you have to be somebody to make the change, right? Because a lot of times we want to point and we're waiting for somebody to come save us. They're not coming to save us.
Right.
They're not coming.
No.
They're not. They're not going to funnel more money into our schools. They're not going to do it unless they have to. right? And the way they have to is by our participation, our organization, us taking accountability for our actions, us being articulate enough and having representation and making sure we vote, and right, and being all of these things that we've been talking about for my entire life in media, 25 years. And we're still talking about it today, and that's because we won't step up and do what Mrs. Lopez is doing every day and staying in school till 9 o'clock, even though she's got a daughter that I'm sure wants to go to a movie or have a nice dinner or these things, but she's giving her life for it. And she doesn't get extra money for that. She's doing that for love, right? We need more adults doing that. And because kids just want to be hugged and loved and told that they can go on and do other things and be embraced. But until our elders, our parents, our government officials want to put in the extra time, and then we also as young people want to put in the extra time and the extra work, because it's not, life is not fair, America's not fair, it is about money, it is about capitalism, that's what it is. I don't care what anybody says, I'm inside big corporations all the time. They only care about their money, their bottom line, and analytics. That's it.
So we're going to hear from one of our elders right now.
I'm an elder?
You're an elder.
Oh, my God.
Watch out.
I'm a Brooklynite. I've worked with children since I was 11, here and abroad. I wanted to think very carefully what I said to young people. What one thing could I tell them that just might stick in their head and help them out? It's about perception. This country did a foul job in the 70s of telling people that they're an individual. They don't need to be accountable because they're an individual. And they taught us wrong. Some of us have come through that only to find out that WBAI is one of the stations that you can count on. I say that because I have volunteered for them. And you need to know, everyone in the audience as well as you students, there are no Black-owned radio stations in New York City. So while you hear your favorite artist on the radio, they are in it for the money too. The stations are in it for the money too. The people that are on the stations don't own the stations and don't want to put their jobs in jeopardy by telling you what's going on behind the scenes. How we don't own any radio station or any medium in New York City, I will never understand, but it's not too late. Your student government organizations, forget about marching. Hold your money. This you can do in school. It doesn't take a lot of time. Find a company, whether it's a soft drink company or the bad food in your neighborhood. Stop buying it. They will hear that louder than anything else and any other footsteps. Thank you.
It's on. You're ready.
Okay. My name is Jeanette Oaks. I'm actually a mental health professional. I work in a high school. And I think a big issue we have to do is we have to humanize the voice of thugs and the young people that we keep talking about. You know, we had a wonderful panel here tonight, and I find, you know, even when I sit down, I watch CNN and these type of places, these type of shows, right. I'm always like, where are the true voices of these type of young people that we are sitting around and intellectualizing about? You know, working in the school, I'm constantly hearing these type of stories. I'm always trying to figure out how can I bring this voice. As long as we look at people and we can't connect with them, we're never, ever going to be able to see what their issues are and how to help them. And so to Principal Lopez, you know, I wanted to ask you, in your school, do you guys teach our young people life skills? You know, we teach young people all the time in terms of, you know, you go out, you're going to become a lawyer, you do all these type of things, but how are you, what basic skills do you have to go out here and problem solve, you know? And how are we going to provide them with a pipeline? You know, last week I sat on a panel where we were choosing young people to get scholarships. And because a young man, he looked negative and oppositional, he made very good points. But because the people I sat with felt he was negative, he was taken out of the pool to get an opportunity. I see young people's names taken off of the list to go to colleges, right? So it's like we have to teach them how to advocate. But in terms of the life skills, what type of life skills do you think our young people need within the school system? I have my own ideas, but I was just curious about what do you think?
So we have a character ed program that starts in 6th grade. We actually partner with an outside organization called Liberty Partnerships through Medgar Evers College that's embedded in my school. They're there 5 days out of the week. They have a grant. They overextend themselves. They're at every function of our school. So it's not even just about having one basic curriculum. They know the community. They know my scholars. They know their needs. They know their families. So it's customized. So it starts at 6th grade. We also have what's called Champion Mondays. Every single adult in my building, every single one of them, we have 10 scholars. That includes myself. And we go through life skills, just how to speak, how to sit, how to look someone in the eye, how to be accountable, how to return a phone call, how to answer the phone. Like, there's things that you don't think that's important that are important. Why do we wear uniforms? Why, you have to embrace and accept other people's cultures and be tolerant without being disrespectful, judgmental, and criticizing others, even though it's been done to you. There's a way that you need to engage and navigate. There's something called code switching. We do it all. And that doesn't just stop because it's in 6th grade. It's 7th grade and 8th grade. And in 7th grade, all of my scholars have to take an entrepreneurship class because in Brownsville, it's hard to get a job, it's hard to find money, and I can't have my kids on the corner trying to sell drugs or stealing. So they need to learn how to do create legal tender because they're so talented and they're so gifted. So we do that for them, and then by the time they get to 8th grade, they've already been taught 6th and 7th grade how to select high schools and look at colleges. We go through books, we look at applications, so that one of the things we do is protect them so that when they go beyond us, they're educated if their parent can't do it for them.
So these are hard skills that they have. Thank you. And we are closing in on our last half hour. This is when it gets really fun because all the questions get really tight and the answers get really direct, right? All right, you're next.
Right, message.
All right, my name's Claudine Pierre-Lewis. And I'm from Medgar Evers College, and I got a question for anybody a part of the media. I recently just realized that I wanted to be a part of the media as well because there's a lot of lies going on around being spread that you could just look on any Facebook post whenever something happens. There's a lot of angry white people who automatically make the black people always look like they're in the wrong no matter what situation it is. Like Tamir Rice, when he got shot up in like 2 seconds when they rolled up on him. They look for any reason to make it look like the black kid, it was his fault, no matter what the situation is, it's always his fault. So I just recently decided I wanted to join in the media in order to stop the lies, the spread of the lies. But I don't really know how to really do that, and I just wanted to.
So you talked about an internship.
I'll give you my card
Crystal
after the show, and you can hit me up, and I'll try my best to see what you can do. Because I mentioned the term infiltrated previously, but that's exactly the sort of mindset that we need. I used to have the idea of like, after I graduated from university, is going to law school, so I need to make money, because I come from a low-income, poor background too, and you have the idea you have to go into those sort of jobs in order to make money and take care of your family. Yeah. But it's also important that we shape and influence a narrative that these people are saying about us. So hit me up after the show.
There's also a place called the BRIC House where there are phenomenal media education classes.
Right there.
You know a guy, you should see him afterwards as well. I'm gonna go to you, sir, really quickly.
How you doing, guys? My name is Bilal Dungo, and I'm 20 years old. I went to high school at the same school as Kenneth over there, so Brooklyn Community Arts and Media. Now it's like an issue that teachers that teach in high schools, they don't know how to relay information to their students. So I've been, like, this is like since I've been in like 5th grade though. Like I've been in classes and it's like I've had to be a co-teacher because the teachers have been so bad. So it's an issue that, like, it's like the way that you teach, you're not really teaching us how to understand the world and the information and the world around that information. So it's the case that, like, yeah, who relays things like, all right, like we can learn simple things like patterns, how to look at patterns, so migrational patterns, let's say. There's a lot of Guyanese people that look like Indians, but I didn't know that, like Indians were definitely imported for like a workforce inside the Caribbean. Like you don't find those things out until you like look into them for yourself. So that's not in a textbook anywhere. Right. But if you can look at the world and see what's happening, like live contemporaneously more or less. But nobody teaches that in school. So what's up with that? Like
we need curriculum change, and we need to figure out how to make that happen. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but the reality of what we're living in, right, is like mirror control and the different powers that be that don't want us to know who we really are, who don't want us to be inspired to be what our ancestors were, right? Like that's the reality of the world we're living when we're under like white supremacy, right? Because that's been socialized, that's been taught, we've been taught. Right? We've been taught that, and that's the reality of what it is, because it didn't exist at some point. It was considered a mental illness to look at someone who was a different color than you and think that they were lesser than you. It was considered a mental illness at one point, and then it became socialized because of the powers that be. But we need to really work on curriculum change. Is definitely something that's needed. We need to be putting the truth out there. We need to be putting the real history about where our ancestors and who we are as a people and what we are capable of, because we know what we are capable of.
So then, Principal Lopez, in that time, how much curriculum versus testing leeway do you have?
None.
Okay.
So moving on. No.
Short answer.
So there isn't any. And I'm gonna be honest, me and Ibra were about the same age. So I didn't learn anything that I know about history and any of that in school. There might have been one
Hip-hop
teacher.
records.
Right. It was
KRS-One.
music. It was, my dad had a collection of Eye on the Prize, had me sit in front of PBS. It was good television programming
Malcolm
that
X
helped. Right. Books that I was introduced to. It's never been part of the school system, because the school system was never designed for that. But there was always one good teacher who, in between the curriculum, knew how to teach you that information.
Okay.
So we just have to really teach our kids how to find the information. And most of us, you know, our kids, they don't look in books. They don't like reading. So
And we didn't have Google.
Right, we didn't have it.
We didn't have nothing.
So
we
if
had
it
the
was
man at the door knocking, selling you encyclopedias every
Right.
year. And your mom was on a payment plan. Remember that? And
Yep.
your mom never paid it off.
I remember.
Remember that?
Yep.
That's what we had. What was it called?
Britannica.
Encyclopedia Britannica.
That still happens even in my
We're going to interrupt this episode a good time. Sir.
Hi, my name is Curtis Harris. I'm the executive director of Green Earth Poets Cafe. We do a lot of work with youth in Brownsville, Brooklyn, where I was born, at the Brownsville Heritage House. And we help youth and people find their voice through poetry, through spoken word. One issue I'd like to discuss briefly. I hear that money is the end-all, be-all. I beg to differ. I think power is a real issue in our communities. I'm 57 years old, and I have seen people get co-opted with money. Even our president himself used the term thug
Criminals.
against his own community. And it's because I think Louis Farrakhan said before he was elected, he was selected. So you remember something very important. Money is not power. Power is the ability to determine what color money is. Someone could say that tomorrow money is red, or money is a cowrie shell, or money is a bottle cap. That's power. That's what our kids need to understand. So money is not the end all be all. And my second point is
being you got 2 points.
How important do you see the arts in helping to solve our collective problems?
Let's go to that.
Critical. The arts, like incorporating arts and culture, like that's how we express ourselves. It is critical and it's integral in everything that we do and should always be there. Like I just can't imagine living in a civilization where you didn't have music or art or writing. I don't see it happening, like, or going very well. So it is definitely critical. It's a way of self-expression. It's definitely important for sure.
All right, he snuck 2 points in on me. I'm gonna go to you. No, I'm talking to you. Yeah.
What I wanted to say when he made that point was that he was talking about with the thing with power, that you could say that it depends on power. Money is red. So I wanted to agree with him too, and I also saw it as I was writing down and I put I always get this quote that is, consciousness is power. So then when you refer to that, it's kind of like if I have more consciousness over you and you're ignorant, then I could easily convince you that money is red. And so I could technically run this world. So then now also when the Han 97, I kind of forgot your name.
This is Ebro.
My bad, yeah. But he was talking about how you guys didn't have Google back in the day. So now it's technically up to us to gain our consciousness and to gain our power and unite. So now we have all these resources like Google and the internet where people say things freely, and the arts where people express themselves, and it's a great tool to spread the consciousness so that everybody can be consciousness and unite, and then we can regain our power.
Thank you, Dari.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you to the panel and thank you to the moderator.
Thank you.
My name is Vita Clark and I'm from East Flatbush. I just wanted to tell the young people to actually to join the community boards because our board president just signed a law that they could join.
Right.
I mean, from
you don't even
16,
have to be
17.
18. You can be 16 and join the community
and join
board.
the community boards.
Yeah.
And also, I believe in you young people because I know we were young once. And we all had aspirations, and so don't let anyone define you.
Thank you so much. That's news you can use. I'm going to go to you. Speak right into that
My name
mic.
is Bernadette Benjamin. Hi.
Hi, Bernadette.
I am going to be a senior in 2 weeks. So I'm a junior right now at the High School for Public Service. And I want to say I'm a huge advocate. I advocate for so many different things. I've been in YOSOS 2 years ago. Last year I was in YJB, which is Youth Justice Board. And this year I have been part of Coral Exploring Leadership, and I just got the internship for this summer. So I'm going to be working with a lot of young people, and I have been working with young people my whole life. However, in my experience in Coral, we learned about the school system, but we also learned how African Americans, Native Americans, Mexicans, and Black people, because I know the African American terminology doesn't fit right with other people, how we're affected by the school system. And one thing I noticed though is that you guys keep saying that we need to do something, we need to do this, that, and a third, but have you ever really understand that we're kind of not really united? We're not really united as a community in so many different ways. Because I remember in so many instances, I'm trying to advocate for something, and I have friends who want to back me up, especially with a lot of things that's going on, especially with police brutality. However, the moment it happens, we get angry, but then something else in the media shows up, and then we're just like, oh yeah, let's look at that. Especially
so while you were trying to figure out if the dress was blue or white, or black,
the dress was blue or white, and the
happened.
NAACP, the issue with that, but did we really recognize what Akon was doing? Or the other stuff that was happening around underneath. I remember a story about this woman who her brother was in the park, and they were brutally stabbed and kicked around, but nobody paid attention to that. We was paying attention to this woman who was pretending she was Black. So I want to know what is your take on the fact that we're not united, yet you're telling us that we got to do all these things?
So I'll say it. And I can only speak again from what I've created. In a community that has been broken intentionally, in a community that there's a lot of money that's somewhere, but it's not where I can see it. I had to create something. And so I'm charged with empowering my scholars and creating that space that will allow them to know that they can take over the world and give them the tools to do it. So I want to be very clear. Do all of the elected officials come out? Absolutely not. I'm that principal who I'm so proud of my school. Everyone knows they get emails. They get emails to the point that they're bombarded with the emails like, oh God, something else from her. Before Humans of New York, if we had at least 1,000 people on an email server, and that's minimal, 1,000, we would maybe get 2 responses. So I'm very intentional about who I ask to do things because I don't like begging. I don't beg for my children. So if you can't do it, I'll do it first. but I'm gonna make you feel guilty that you didn't do it, right? So I have go-to people all the time that I will go to say, I need this done, and they'll show up consistently. That's my village. So if it's only 10 people who've been rocking out with me, then those 10 are showing those kids that they're that important. Now, because we've created such a momentum and a story breaks, right? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Miss Lopez, we've been thinking about you. You wasn't thinking about me for 5 years. Let's be very clear. But my scholars, my very scholars, they remember the 10 people who showed up consistently. So what I can say to you is this: there has to be one adult. Even if it's with the groups that you started out with, and you are learning the tools. You are our leader. It's in you. You've decided that something isn't being done, so you have to do it yourself. So I applaud you for that. So what you don't see in your community, and you're asking, what should I do? You're already doing it, sweetheart. Just take it on to the next level. If you need one of us to help you mobilize, that's not a problem. I'll give you my information. But you are charged. You're the next generation of us that's up here that we expect that of you.
Moving right to you.
What's up? My name is Shakur Williams.
Shakur.
Recently, I went to a city council meeting, and I went to speak about police relations in like a black community. And when I went there, I kind of felt like my voice wasn't heard. And I wanted to ask you, what can I do to be more heard?
I would say, it happens a lot. We've lobbied up in the state where it's even crazier sometimes. Actually, it is crazier in the state. And politicians will be like, we don't care. They have like shut young people down, have been disrespectful. And we tell our young people, you will meet those people in the world, not even in just elected officials, right? You will meet these type of peoples in many different places, and they will come in many different shapes and sizes and in many different colors. And what you need to recognize is don't lose your focus. Don't let that deter you from the message that you want to get out. And what I would say is, all right, that didn't work. You go back, you regroup. You think about where's my support system. You think about what's an escalating tactic that I need to do next. You go back and you strategize. You think about what's going to make them pay attention. Like, what is a tactic, what is a tool that I'm going to do that's going to embarrass them, right? For disrespect, in that private meeting, you felt like you weren't heard. What's going to be something later that they're going to feel embarrassed about, right? And you're going to come back and you're going to go harder and you'll be with a bigger team next time, right? Because sometimes we try to do things individually, but there are powers in numbers. Yeah. So I would say, get your numbers together, get your crew together, right? Begin to strategize and think about each time. If something doesn't work out, that's okay. Think about your next tactic. Have plan A, B, C, D, as many as you need to have, and as many as extreme as you want to go. You get what I'm saying? And make sure that you have the support system for each tactic that you want to do in place, right? So that way, if you need encouragement next time, if you're like, oh, I need adult allies, think about who are the parents who will be supporting you to also push the message that is saying, I'm not here as a parent speaking for my child, I'm here supporting the message that they're saying, I'm here backing them up, right? You think about who are the educators I can get on my side to support me the next time if I need those allies in those spaces. But you make sure that at the core of it, you have your crew of young folks who are there to back you up and have their message heard, because the reality is your story, nobody can tell you that your story ain't legit, that it ain't real, that it does not matter, because that's your life, baby. That's your life. And can nobody like erase that and act like that's not important? No, you just got to come back next time bigger in numbers.
Don't be deterred because they don't even listen to each other half.
Exactly, they don't.
Just keep going back.
You keep going and you keep coming back. Exactly.
We are down to 5 minutes. We're all going to talk, but I need you to say something right now.
Good evening. My name is Destiny L. Robinson. I'm a youth ambassador with CAMI, which is Connect a Million Youth. It's a Brooklyn-based organization, and we're based in Bed-Stuy. And I want to applaud you guys, the panel, the host, the audience, everybody. I think this is awesome. This is an awesome event. But with that being said, how many people knew about it? How many people know about it? And then I'm sure you reached out to many people and let them know. We reach out to many people, many media people. We invite them. It's a free event. It's for young people to come and, the same kind of platform, have their voice be heard, let their voices out, their issues. We're talking about social media, social media etiquette, not just how to use a hashtag, but the right hashtags, so you can get your voice out there. Right. And it's like really saddening to have an event, you plan an event, you do everything, and then all of the media people who said, oh, we're gonna come, we're gonna support you guys, you know, it's a great thing, and they don't come. Or the schools that you sent out letters to, oh, we're gonna bring some of our students, but then nobody shows up. So my question or my statement is basically, where do you like go from there? Like whose doors do you need to knock on to say, hey, young people want to be heard. They're having an event. We're not just all out on the corner or twerking or doing something like that. We're sitting here having a conversation about our futures, and you say you care and you're in office or you're an educator and you're not here. You're not even showing up.
You know what? Just as Principal Lopez as an example, keep doing the work. Yeah. And when you have that Humans of New York moment, you're going to be so prepared and have the memory of the folks who didn't show. And you'll still be nice to them, but you'll be so much better prepared when everyone is paying attention because you've gone the course, right?
Yeah.
You've done the work.
So you're speaking into my day today, right? Like, we should have 10,000 families wanting to beat down the door to have their kids come into a school that does amazing things. Right. But the reality is that I had a conversation about I have to lay off teachers and I have to cut programming because the numbers aren't there.
Okay.
And so do I stop? Do I become discouraged? I know I'm pushing against a system that right now is not working in my favor. Right. But I know that the children who are in my space need to be in that space. So whoever is in here right now was supposed to be in here. It's not, oh, you don't need 1,000, 10,000. All you need are the people who are in here. That's powerful enough because everybody in here was willing to listen. You can have a group of 10,000 and only 5 people are really listening.
Yeah. True. All right, to that end, we've got time that is so dwindling. We are still hashtagging at Bheard, and if you're listening on WBAI, I hope you heard her organization and will do your part. I'm gonna go to you, and we'll probably have time for one more.
Hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm from Peace Academy Middle School. And most of the teachers there tell us to open our voice and let our voice be heard.
Yeah.
But as we try, adults, I think, fail to realize that we do have a voice. And that every time we try, nobody listens. Or they'll listen, but won't do nothing about it. How do you feel about that?
I think the last comment and your comment and a couple of, they kind of all go in the same basket of consistency over an extended period of time, organization, persistence, you know, and I think, you know, everyone up here could probably speak to that in your life, right? You know, we didn't all get here just by one conversation or one moment or one opportunity or even one success or one failure, right? Like you keep getting back up and you keep going again and you believe in yourself and you believe in your mission and you believe in your support system and your family and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going because it's, like I said earlier, I've been having the same conversation for 25 years in media, right? It's not a new conversation, it's not a new problem. But we have to continue. And as I get older, there'll be hopefully somebody that comes after me that continues the conversation and so on and so forth because of young people like yourself and everybody that took the time out to come here. So you just gotta stay at it. All right. You gotta stay organized and you have to stay persistent and patient.
We're going here.
Yes, my name is Vincent. I studied at City College, New York, and I had a chance to intern with Source Magazine, Global Grind, High 97. I worked with Miss Lisa Evers and Tone Capone, and I also worked with Sarita Gates over at Bedford Stuyvesant Restoration Corporation. We did anti-gun violence murals together. Now, during the time of my internships, I really had a chance to see what was going on with media. I believe that with social media, we have a very increased visibility of the state of mind, the conscious of the youth today, you know? It's in plain sight. Now, how do we use media to adjust the youth state of mind? They're in a hip-hop state of mind. Nobody actually wants to go to church anymore. We're not raised in the church, you know? We no longer going to school.
The question is out there, so how do we influence them? We've literally got 20 seconds worth of time.
I think you influence media by staying active and staying and using all the tools at your disposal to create awareness for your movement. I think I'm a firm believer just from working in media that, you know, they want to be associated with the things that they can see are the movements. That's what they always gravitate to. If the movement is something that we all would look at, a Rachel Dolezal incident, and say, why is she on the Today Show with Matt Lauer? You could see Matt Lauer's face was like, why am I talking to this person? Right? But it was the biggest thing, and his producers saw all the activity on it.
So people wanted to listen to. That's what people.
So, you know, they went for that. So I think that that's kind of, we galvanize, we motivate, right? And we be heard. Nice closure, be heard.
Well, you would think that would be closure. Normally, this would be the time where I ask you guys to sum it up, but we got some young people here, so we want you to be heard. You're gonna send us home. We literally have about 40 seconds, so what do you want us to know leaving this space tonight, Crystal?
I'd say just remember that you matter, you have hopes, you have dreams, you can make it. Just because society tells you that you are one thing doesn't mean that you are, and you should fight against it and be who you actually are.
Kenneth, build on that.
I just want to say that is just to build off what she said, that you are important and your voice matters, and you should use every little outlet that you can with art, movies, rap, whatever is your love. Just keep doing it and, like, you know, doing it for a positive goal. Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna break you guys up for a second, and you are gonna be my last question.
My name is Amor. I'm 12 years old. I'm a young advocate against gun violence, and I have a question. There are so many people that are like against the police, and they have a description that the police are just being bullies with badges. So I wanted to know, how do you all feel that the police and the community are able to work together, and we can both have a level of respect for each other in which nobody's disrespecting each other, and the police aren't abusing their power, and the people aren't trying to disrespect the police and try and go out there and
I think we hear you. And you know what? Marlon is the perfect person to answer that as soon as we finish with these guys. Good, give me your final summation, Aisha.
I just want to say that you should speak into existence, and anything that you put your mind to, you can do it, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't, which is a lot of what the people were saying in the audience. Whatever you put your mind to, you can do it, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Sky's the limit.
I just wanted to end on, make sure that you communicate with the people out there. There's a lot of resources, and just do what you gotta do. You know, there's a lot of people who support you. Make sure you support the other people, and exchange in communication and exchange in love and peace.
So I want to thank all of the young people who are here tonight. You guys were phenomenal. We hope that you've been really engaged this evening. Thank you for adding a voice. And all of our panelists here, thank you so much for sharing your time. And the dialogue will continue, or hashtag Be Heard. We're streaming online. Thank you to WBAI for simulcasting. And we hope that you feel welcome, that you'll come back into this space and continue to engage us all over the place. So thank you so much, and have a good evening.